The next step in the process is technical road mapping. But first, I want to point out that actually sometimes this isn't the fifth step in the process. No, that's the fifth video. That was an intro. Fourth step in the process. Sometimes we actually do it first, right in hand with road mapping. And here's the reason why it appears either first or fourth. Sometimes we put technical road mapping first to establish a simple go, no-go for the project. In other words, it's more of a feasibility study. Is WordPress the right platform for what we're trying to do? Is WooCommerce the right platform for what we're trying to do? And by establishing that up front, we don't necessarily have to dive into content definition or anything else just yet. We do still need to start with the strategic project definition so that we know what we're trying to achieve, and then we can dive into the tech to see if the tech can support it. The theory being there, we want to find out as fast as possible if we're barking up the wrong tree. So if we're looking at a really complex technical build, sometimes we'll throw technical road mapping first to get that out of the way and make sure that we are barking up the right tree. And then even then, sometimes we still go to it fourth and hit it again. So fourth in the process, typically after we've done the strategic project definition and the content definition and that other thing, introduction, I lost it. That's okay. Purpose of technical road mapping. Number one, we want to evaluate everything that your current system does. We never want to find ourselves in a position where we build something new and we end up losing functionality. So step one is to define everything your existing system already does so we don't lose any of that. Next, we make a wish list of all of the things that it could do. So we want to think big and go crazy. Ideally, it would be perfectly automated and checks would just show up in your PO box. But even that's old school, direct deposit that. Then we pare that list down to the minimum viable product. That's startup language for saying what's the least we can do and still be effective. That means we can build it cheaper, faster, and put it in front of your actual customers sooner, and then iterate on that and make it better rather than wallowing in development trying to build something that's perfect before it even ever sees the light of day. So we take your wish list of features, we pare that down to your minimum viable implementation, and then maybe group the follow-up features into phases for development down the line. Then the real nitty-gritty starts. The actual heart of technical road mapping is to define all the data that goes in, where and how that data is stored technically, all the data that has to come back out, and the user actions, both from the visitor and the admin, that affect how that data is handled. You know, where it comes in, how it gets changed, the whole life cycle. And obviously, depending on what we're talking about, whether it's an e-commerce store or a different technical implementation, that can look very different. And then finally, we evaluate what the best way to achieve that functionality is. We know what we need to collect, how we're going to store it, what we need to output, all the actions we're going to take in that life cycle. So we start looking at, can this be done with an existing plugin for WordPress? Can it be done with a number of plugins that we're going to weave together to work together to achieve what we need to do? Or do we need to take a plugin or a group of plugins and customize them just a little bit? They get you 90% of the way there, but we just got to add a little bit of polish on top to make it do what we need it to do. Or the very end of the spectrum, which is purely custom development. And that'll help us define what the scope for building it out is. So technical road mapping is a piece, A, that sometimes we put first, and B, even in the flow, sometimes it can affect the scope of the project downstream if we discover something that we didn't anticipate.